Welcome to the Shreveport Connection with Tommy. This video is on WWE's pay-per-view from last night, being the, what was it? I forgot what it was. Money in the Bank pay-per-view. How's that? But first, some brief news. The WWE has announced that the Royal Rumble pay-per-view will take place January 27th, 2013 from Phoenix, Arizona, same place where the pay-per-view last night was, and the announcement was made to the Phoenix crowd at the Money in the Bank pay-per-view. Tickets go on sale Friday, this coming Friday, and the pre-sale password will be issued to the Phoenix fans later tonight, being after all, probably, or last night. Juan Marichal attended the Money in the Bank pay-per-view last night, and he was in the crowd. And he was passing along some brief notes. There were a lot of Borgasm chants. Yes, yes, yeah. During the filling of the upcoming of the show, the arena was only 75% full. It was disappointing because WWE draws well in Phoenix. The crowd size is about the same as Raw TV taping there in Phoenix back in January 2012. During the Austin era, a house show in the arena would sell out within hours. During the Cena era, we can't sell this arena out for a pay-per-view. Disappointing indeed. Also in the crowd was MLB celebrity, that's Major League Baseball celebrity, Luis Gonzalez, former baseball player, was famous for hitting the winning pitch during Game 7 of the 2001 World Series. Arizona Diamondbacks versus the damn Yankees from New York. And he was sitting in the front row, right near the entrance walkway. There was a lot of technical glitches during the pre-show match because Hunico's music played for a few seconds and cut off. The crowd was hot for Chris Jericho when he was introduced for his backstage interview during the pre-show. The sign guy was sitting in the front row. Yeah, I noticed him in the crowd on the hard camera side, so the TV audience might not have seen him. But guess what? I did multiple times. The crowd was pro CM Punk. They cheered loudly when they showed him on the big screen, though. Booker T came out to decent crowd reactions. Michael Colesaw was heavily booed. And Jerry the King Lawler was cheered loudly as always. Spanish announcers got a decent reaction. I'm not sure how it was due to the Hispanic crowd. Lillian Garcia got a great pop. Tyson Kidd got a nice reaction. I was surprised by that. The crowd was well into Santino, especially the kids. Huge positive live crowd reaction to Dolph Ziggler winning the SmackDown Money in the Bank match. And when they played the No Holds Barred video, surprised that live crowd had no reaction to seeing Hulk Hogan. A nice crowd reaction for The Miz. He made his return. First off, he's wearing a suit. He said, "Did y'all forget about me?" Well, pay attention to the results to see what else happened. Hispanics in the crowd seemed to be pro Alberto Del Rio. Primo and Epco and Rosa got a good reaction for their match. And their entrance and victory, my guess it was from the huge Latino turnout. The crowd was hot behind when CM Punk made his entrance. After Punk versus Daniel Bryan, about a dozen crew members rushed to the ring to clean up the melee. There were a loud Goldberg chants directed at Ryback when he had his match. Ryback is a freak of nature in person as well as on TV. Brodus Clay's disco ball was hanging somewhere in the arena, but wasn't even used at all, so that was a waste. Didn't even make an on or off camera appearance. The crew wasted their time for that setup. Nothing happened after the pay-per-view. Justin Roberts closed the show and reminded everybody to get their Royal Rumble tickets. And I lost the reporter lost their wallet, but luckily he had the driver's license in his pocket and debit card with him. After the show, I went downstairs to security, and luckily someone turned in my wallet. Woo-hoo! Good Samaritans are still out there. But after leaving security, I was waiting at the elevator next to the Spanish announcers. I talked with them for a couple of minutes. They noted that that they're headed back east to the studio to work on Raw and SmackDown. Overall, it was a fun show to attend live. Rey Mysterio will be returning to the ring at Tuesday's WWE SmackDown taping in San Diego, California. Mysterio will be teaming with John Cena in a dark match main event against Big Show and, of course, the fired John Laryngitis. Yeah, I used to be the head of talent relations. Now I'm just a jobber. And WWE is not advertising Mysterio for anything after that, for any upcoming TV events. Of course, they could add him at any point. Most likely, he will be added to Raw, which I'm doing my video as Raw is going on with right now. It's Big Show and Punk doing some promos in the middle of the ring. Okay, so he merely makes a dark appearance for Tuesday, assuming he doesn't make an advertised appearance on Raw tonight. Scott Stafford and Matt Striker take in from ringside as they hyped the pre-show. They pointed out the countdown clock on the screen, and they ran through the pay-per-view card. Backstage, Santino Marella and Zack Ryder were talking when Damien Sandow entered the picture. Sandow reminded Ryder that he beat him in their qualifying match and spoke of capturing the Money in the Bank contract. Well, I never did predict him even coming close. Well, he didn't win. Well, okay, for the dark match prior to the pay-per-view, as advertised, R-Truth and Kofi Kingston versus Hunico and Camacho in a non-title match. Hunico cut a promo and he walked to the ring while Camacho rode a stupid bicycle. Hunico said that they are the future of WWE. Stanford said he had no idea what Hunico said, even though Hunico spoke English. Stryker explained it to him. And then there were ladders set up around the ring, even though it was a standard match. R-Truth sold and eventually made a hot tag to Kingston, who got the better of Hunico. The heels came back and Hunico picked up Kofi from the mat and slammed him down for a near fall. Both wrestlers tagged their partners into the match. Truth worked over Camacho. In the end, Kingston Camacho whipped Camacho toward Truth, who hit him with his finisher and scored a clean pin. The match took about 8 minutes, 25 seconds, roughly. A good high-energy opener. The crowd was receptive to the babyface's high spots. And they go backstage to Josh Matthews interviewing Chris Jericho, who spoke about Money in the Bank. He said everyone will refer to him as the greatest of all time at the end of the night. Jericho continued to drop some of his old lines, including the mention of being the Ayatollah of rock and roller. And I sense a babyface turn coming soon, though you never know for sure with Jericho. A video recap the Sheamus and Alberto Del Rio feud. And the announcers noted that the switch to the stipulation in that particular match would be changed to a no disqualification match. Backstage again, Josh Matthews interviewed Daniel Bryan, who said AJ is his soulmate. Matthews noted that she slapped him. Bryan said that that's something about desire that Matthews can't understand. Bryan and AJ will make the tough decision, be fair, and he'll end the show with the WWE Championship and AJ's heart. Well, then they recapped the love triangle story involving CM Punk and Daniel Bryan and AJ, and they cut right to the pay-per-view. As I'm just reading the results, I never did get to see it on WWE.com nor their YouTube account again. Technical difficulties again. Well, Money in the Bank pay-per-view starts off with a video package showing the focus on the Money in the Bank ladder matches. It concluded by asking, who will be the next champion? We're not wasting time tonight. We're giving away a pair of 3 month. Okay, well, that was, this is not necessary. It's according to the website that we're giving away a 3-month membership for free. And that's ProWrestling.net. Michael Cole introduced the show, as was joined by Jerry the King Lawler and Booker T on commentary. Well, I missed the first match, trying to get the pay-per-view online. And it was Cody Rhodes versus Dolph Ziggler with Miss Vicky Guerrero. Versus Tensai with Sakamoto versus Damien Sandow versus Christian versus Santino Marella versus Sin Cara versus Tyson Kidd in the SmackDown Money in the Bank match. Santino made a comedic jump for the briefcase when the bell rang. It's a good thing that it isn't Royal Rumble because most of the wrestlers were tossed to ringside right away. Tensai was given an early offensive spotlight. He slingshotted Kidd into a ladder, and then that was draped between the ropes. Christian, Santino, and Kidd battled on the top of the ladder. Kidd fell off prematurely, and Sandow emerged to push the ladder over. And Christian and Santino took throwaway bumps. Sandow received good heat as he made a failed attempt to grab the briefcase. There was a sloppy spot when Sin Cara and Dolph performed a move off the top rope. That action was fast-paced. Kidd got the better of Cody and knocked him to ringside. Kidd made a play for the briefcase, but Tensai broke it up. Santino made a play for the briefcase, and the fans cheered. Tensai went to powerbomb Santino off the ladder, and they both tumbled to the ground awkwardly. Sandow once again drew strong heat as he made a play for the briefcase. Christian stopped him. Sandow went for a move on Christian, who responded with a kill switch. Booker T called a beautiful move. Christian followed by spearing Sandow onto a ladder that was leaning against one corner of the ring. Dolph and Cody raced to the top of the ladder and exchanged blows at 9 minutes 45 seconds into the match, but Tensai pulled them down. Kidd did a springboard onto the ladder to prevent Tensai from grabbing the briefcase. Santino and Ziggler ended up in the ring together while everyone else was at ringside. Santino hit the Cobra on Ziggler. Santino was afraid of heights, but the Cobra pulled him up. Yeah, that was really the story, because he just had to pull him up. Sandow climbed to, we caught it right at that point into the pay-per-view. And only Santino was caught by Sandow, who climbed up to stop him, and Sandow ate a Cobra. Cody drop kicked the ladder, and Santino took a slow bump that appeared painful for him. Cody set up the ladder and made a play for the briefcase, but Vicky Guerrero climbed up the other side and yelled at him. Dolph enters the ring from the distraction and hit the zigzag off the ladder. Dolph got his hand on the briefcase, but Christian stopped him. There was a wild tower of ladder spots with Ziggler, Kidd, Christian, and Sandow. Kidd performed a wild power bomb, but Ziggler took a front bump instead of landing on his back. Kyle responded with "Holy shit, shit." Christian slammed a ladder into Sandow's face, dove at him, and they tumbled to the ringside. Tensai set up a ladder on the apron and the announcer's table. Yeah, it's like across the ring. Tensai powerbombed Sin Cara onto the ladder. Sin Cara bounced on the ladder while taking the big bump. Tensai goes for it and then through Ziggler, and who took a wild bump onto the announcer's table. Cody hits Tensai with a beautiful disaster kick. Cody headed up the ladder and managed to knock Kidd down, but Christian speared him off the ladder at 17 minutes 15 seconds in the match. Christian went for the briefcase and fumbled with it for a bit while waiting for someone to stop him. That someone was Dolph Ziggler, who knocked Christian off the ladder. Christian took a nasty-looking bump off the ladder that was set up in the corner. Ziggler unhooked the briefcase to win the Money in the Bank match. Vicky screamed and clapped as Dolph mugged on the top of the ladder. So Dolph wins the SmackDown Money in the Bank at 18 minutes 15 seconds in the pay-per-view. Dolph's win should please a lot of online fans, including yours truly. Just a little bit, because he is a show-off. The match had plenty of botched spots, but the pacing was insane with non-stop spots. Good news is that the fans never got a chance to think too long about the botched spots, but they didn't get a chance to even digest before the bigger spots either. Then they showed a no-holds-barred DVD re-digitalized mastered commercial aired, the same one that they've shown for the last 2 weeks. Yeah, you know, the one with a segment with Hogan picking up the driver of the car. What's that smell? And the guy goes, dookie. And they show us like drizzling down his leg and onto the car. That was in the actual movie. And they went to other shots in the movie as well. Of course, they showed Zeus and what have you. Okay, backstage, Josh Matthews interviewed Sheamus. He tried to ask him about Dolph winning Money in the Bank, but Sheamus says he's worrying about tonight rather than the future. Sheamus says the old saying is that you can learn about a man based on the car he drives, but the only ornament he needs is the World Heavyweight Championship belt. Well, in the ring, Justin Roberts introduces The Miz as returning from a 2-month absence, as he's been doing the Marine 3. Miz walked out with a new hairdo and a suit and some facial hair stubble. He didn't get much of a reaction initially. He paused while standing on the stage and didn't say anything, which led to a Miz's awesome chant from some people in the crowd, which I didn't hear it. Miz noted that he was off making a movie. He said he's tired of being overlooked. Then he says he's going to make a sudden impact. And he said the Raw Money in the Bank match won't just feature 4 former WWE champions. It will now feature him as well. He said he will overcome the 4 other participants and become the WWE champion again. Why? Because I'm The Miz and I'm awful. And now I'm a movie star. Well, the awesome chant, part of the line was delivered in a monotone voice. It looks like Miz is going to shake things up. Not. Which is long overdue. Not. Still curious to know who let The Miz in the match to begin with. Was it the board of directors? Is there a guest general manager that we don't know about? Well, I guess Hornswoggle made him added to the match. Alright, then they showed a Raw 1000 video episode featuring Mick Foley winning the WWE Championship, and then Eric Bischoff, I call him Bitchoff, mocking it on Nitro, which led to over 600,000 viewers changing from Nitro to Raw. It was noted that Raw never lost the ratings battle again. Well, the announcer spoke at ringside, then they set up the Sheamus versus Alberto Del Rio match, which was match number 2, so you got 2 matches in the first hour, and that takes up the first hour. Well, Sheamus versus Alberto Del Rio, and with Ricardo Rodriguez, who doesn't do the announcing until Del Rio gets in the ring. Del Rio wore gold and black. Coleslaw was wearing the colors of the Great Conquistadors. The colors may be in honor of his uncle Mil Mascaras, who is celebrating his 70th birthday on yesterday. Mil wore plenty of colors, but gold and black were certainly among the more prominent colors I recall him wearing. Del Rio targeted Sheamus' left arm and worked it over constantly during the match. Legendary sign guy made it on camera when Del Rio was working over Sheamus' arm by wrapping it around the ring post. Sheamus made a brief comeback. He dove over the ropes while going for a clothesline, only to have Del Rio hit him with a code breaker-like move on his arm. Del Rio got a good near fall, and Ricardo flipped at ringside. Sheamus came back with forearm shots to Del Rio's chest at 11 minutes 40 seconds in the match. Later, Sheamus hit a brogue kick on Del Rio and scored a clean pin. Well, after the match, during the match, Sheamus pinned Alberto to win the match at 14 minutes 25 seconds in, which was just over the first hour. After the match, Ricardo jumped on the back of Sheamus, which distracted him long enough for Del Rio to make a comeback, and then attacked Sheamus. The heels put the boots to Sheamus, while a pocket of fans chanted for Ziggler. Sure enough, Ziggler's music played. He comes out to try to cash in, and guess what? He talks to the referee. Del Rio bickered with Ziggler, who hit him with a briefcase. Suddenly, Sheamus blasted off with a brogue kick and left him lying. The announcers pointed out that the bell never rang, so it was not a case of Dolph officially cashing in the Money in the Bank contract. Well, duh. Just like so many times that the previous Money in the Bank winner cashed in. Crowd was a little restless early on during Del Rio's domination, but enjoyed the way he continued to target the arm. Well, you always work on a body part to get your finisher set up. And the fans came to life when Sheamus made his comeback and popped big for the brogue kick, even though Del Rio got his hands up, and it looked bad. but you have to get your shoulders up for a pinfall. Meanwhile, the Brogue Kick that Sheamus handled Ziggler looked awesome. A nice tease. I'm happy they didn't have Dolph cash in tonight because I wanted to see the briefcase be in play for a while. Well, now there's still 2 Money in the Bank briefcases now. Well, after that was all gone, said and done, the commercial hyping Raw expanding to 3 hours starting on Raw 1000th episode. Announcers spoke about the Raw 1000 episode. Lawler said it's going to be like a great reunion because all the returning wrestlers. Coleslaw set up a replay of the pre-show Josh Matthews' interview with Daniel Bryan. Third match to set up the second hour of the pay-per-view. Primetime players with AEW, Abraham Washington, versus Primo and Epico with Rosa Mendez. Kofi Kingston and R-Truth came out wearing suits. Yeah, imagine R-Truth wearing a suit. Now that's what's up. Style of profiling. They joined the commentators for the match, and AEW talked over the headpiece, like he normally does with the earpiece, asking the fans to give it up for All World Promotions. And his tag team, in the end, Primo rolled up Darren Young and scored a pin real clean. After the match, Rosa jiggled her tits around, and that was about it for that. And said it didn't matter that they lost because they're still the number 1 contenders. AEW said he led his team over to the tag champs, but then held them back. Truth threw water all over AEW when he came to the announcer's table, so the team held him back instead. Well, Truth acted like he was holding back a little Jimmy on a leash. Primo and Epico only took 7 minutes 37 seconds to beat primetime players. All 4 wrestlers worked hard, but the crowd sat on their hands and didn't even seem to care. It's a shame because Primo and Epico are a fun team, along with watching the jiggles from Rosa. And the addition of Rosa to the act gives them a little spark, a little sex appeal. And I could still see the program working if the players got heat by capturing the tag straps. And are then chased by the Primo and Epico. Not sure why they had the number 1 contenders lose. That's not going to help the team get heat. Are they setting up a triple threat tag match for the fans who are bored by the match? And yeah, and the night is still young, so anything can happen with the WWE. Then they showed a video setting up the WWE Championship match. Backstage, Matt Striker interviewing AJ, who was wearing an awesome bikini top referee shirt. She said that even though Punk broke her heart, it doesn't mean that she doesn't think he's an amazing human being. She said Brian was her first love. Then she said she doesn't know whether she wants to hug them, kiss them, or rip out their... And then she was cut off. She said the match was next. The usual great display of various emotions from AJ. Damn shame that Shawn Michaels didn't buy AJ a pair of his biker shorts for this match. So you got the other championship match for the second hour. CM Punk versus Daniel Bryan in a no disqualification match for the WWE Championship. So, in other words, you get 2 no DQ matches for the championships. With AJ being special referee, Bryan wore a green army-style jacket with blood-like splotches on the front, and which to me looked like he just got in a paintball fight, and which I lost. And Justin Roberts handled the in-ring introductions for the WWE Championship matches, or match, I should say. Bryan did the Borgasm bit. Yes, yes, yes. Bit, and the crowd chanted, "No, no, no!" Again, Bryan had the army green kick pads and trunks to match the jacket, and he wore red blood-like splotches on the trunk. So it must be his new ring gear. There was a cool moment early on with both wrestlers trading kicks to the thigh, which got a rise out of the live crowd. Punk ended up with an uppercut. AJ showed no favoritism early on via her reactions or facial expressions. Around 6 minutes, Bryan shoved Punk into AJ, who was standing in the ring on the ring apron. Punk caught her with an elbow and she fell to the ground. The trainer came out and helped her to the back. So there's your ref bump prediction, like we already knew what was going to happen. And another referee replaced her. For those not watching, it was a planned spot. One can only assume we haven't seen the last of AJ tonight. Well, wait just a few moments. The match continued with the wrestlers fighting at ringside. Punk dove off the announcer's table and connected with a clothesline. Punk seated on the floor. The crowd chanted tables out of nowhere. Punk obliged by pulling a table out from underneath the ring, but it didn't come into play immediately. Rather, Bryan grabbed the kendo stick and started using it as a weapon. Just to make a little noise with the kendo sticks. That's all it would sound like. They fought their way back inside the ring. Punk jumped off the ropes and Bryan hit him with a kendo stick again. Bryan covered Punk for a 2 count as Coleslaw and Booker geeked out as if they were going to be if there was going to be a new champion. There were dueling chants for the wrestlers with Punk having a slight edge. Bryan followed up with a repeated kendo stick. Shots to Punk's back, which actually was hitting the ground more than it was hitting Punk's back. Well, then the Punk chants started as he got to his feet. Wrestlers traded kicks to the chest and forearms to the head while the crowd tried to keep up with the chants. Yeah, when Punk was when Punk was throwing hits, they were saying no. Bryan was saying, punching, yes, no, back and forth from the crowd. Punk got the better of the exchange and used the neck breaker to get a 2 count. Punk signaled for the GTS, but Bryan avoided it. Punk went for it again, and Bryan countered into a roll-up for a good near fall at 15 minutes, 15 seconds in the match. Bryan then dropped Punk with a kick to the head. 16 minutes in now. Bryan rocked Punk into the surfboard. Punk slipped out and picked up the kendo stick. He beat Bryan with it, reportedly with the crowd cheering for him now. Punk covered Bryan for a 2 count. Bryan came back with a superplex at 17 minutes, 25 seconds. AJ ran back to ringside and told the referee to get out of there. It's her match. The referee complied. AJ smiled and skipped around the ring. While they were both sitting exhausted on the mat, AJ went to ringside and pulled a chair out from underneath the ring. "You're a referee," one fan exclaimed. Funny spot. AJ put the chair in between the 2 wrestlers, who then had a race to see who could get the chair. She leaned against the ropes and smiled. Go at it. Bryan got the chair and hit Punk with it a few times. Bryan covered and Punk got a 2 count. Bryan held up 3 fingers like she was supposed to count 3. He told her to do the right thing and count 1, 2, 3. Punk rolled Bryan up for a quick 2 count. Bryan stood up and talked to AJ again. He kicked Punk repeatedly and looked back at AJ after each kick. Punk came back with a big clothesline out of the corner. He picked up a chair and slammed it over Bryan's back. AJ grimaced a bit and Punk delivered blows. Punk sets up a chair in between the ropes. Well, when he went to whip Bryan into the chair, I was already predicting this. Well, AJ stood in the way as predicted. Bryan drop kicked Punk. Bryan crawled over to grab the kendo stick again, but AJ put her foot on it and smiled, and Bryan looked up at her. Bryan turned and walked into a big kick from Punk, who put a chair around Bryan's back and body slammed him. Punk followed up with a top rope elbow, and Bryan moved out of the way. Punk sold an arm injury because he hit the elbow right on the chair. And then when Bryan went for the yes lock, Punk avoided it and grabbed Bryan. But avoided it. Bryan grabbed a kendo stick to apply a hold. Punk appeared to escape the hold by biting Bryan's finger. He whipped her into the corner and then dropped him with a GTS. AJ looked a little concerned. Punk covered Bryan and AJ made a 2 count. Punk turned around at AJ, who looked back at him. Punk went to ringside and picked up the table from earlier, which got some cheers from the fans at 25 minutes, 35 seconds. Punk set up the table in the ring, but put Bryan on top of it. Punk went to the top rope and set up for an elbow drop, but Bryan recovered and cut him off. Bryan hit Punk with kicks and punches as Punk was seated on the top rope. Bryan went to the top rope and threw punches down on the seated Punk. The camera cut to AJ, and then they went back to Bryan. He was crouched on the turnbuckle. Punk performed a German suplex off the top rope and through the table. Punk covered Bryan, and AJ counted 1, 2, 3. After the match, the expressionless, AJ handed the title belt back to Punk, who took it from her, and went back to the ropes to pose. AJ looked sad as she watched Punk. Lawler said it looks like she wanted to be more involved. AJ continued to watch Punk and also pouted. Punk defeated Daniel Bryan to retain the championship at 27 minutes 55 seconds. Taking us into the third hour. A very entertaining mix of brawling and wrestling. AJ's role was a bit disappointing that she didn't really factor into the finish, and it didn't seem like anything was really resolved with her. Her post-match staring at Punk and pouting was interesting. I'm not sure what they were doing with her from there, but it doesn't appear that Punk is finished with her yet as well. It shouldn't be a surprise to anyone that Punk and Bryan worked their asses off. The length of the match was a pleasant surprise. And then they showed a "Don't Try This at Home" video airing. A new tout commercial featuring WWE talent aired. Yeah, a tout is where you can send your own 15-second video or 15-minute video. Well, I've forgotten how it was something to do with 15. And if they use it, you might get compensated for it. Well, match number 5, going into the third hour. Ryback versus Kurt Hawkins and Tyler Rex was a handicap match. I didn't know this was added to the pay-per-view. The crowd was flat for Ryback introduction. Coleslaw ran through a bunch of over-the-top training Ryback techniques that sounded like something inspiring by former NFL player turned MMA fighter Herschel Walker's old training regimen. Mark it down. Ryback actually sold for the heels for the first few minutes of the match. He came back with a big slam on the Hawkins, which didn't get a reaction from the crowd. Eventually, the Goldberg chant started as Ryback continued to work over Hawkins and Rex. "Finish it," he yells to himself. He picked up Rex and dropped him with his shell shot finish move, which is nothing other with a looked like an attitude adjustment, kind of like a torture rack, and just walks over and falls back move. So he squashes him in 4 minutes and 20 seconds. After sitting on the hands for the entire match, some of the fans joined Ryback in his "Phoebe Moore" chant. I was saying that during the pay-per-view myself, during that match myself. Instead of saying "finish it," say "Phoebe Moore." Phoebe Moore at that point, send in some more wrestlers to see how many more he can squash. Okay, well, can't be the only person who would rather see Hawkins and Rex getting a tag push ahead of the primetime players. Heck, why not bring back the Dude Busters? Chris Jericho looked back on his Raw debut for the 1000 Raw flashback video. And then your Divas match. Another match that I believe was added that I didn't know about. Six Diva match. Took a few minutes. Layla, Caitlyn, and Tamina Snuka versus Beth Phoenix, Natalya, and Eve in a 6-Diva tag match. The crowd was just as flat as they were for the Ryback match. Layla pinned Beth with a kick after a kick to win the match. Not much being said. That match took 3 minutes 30 seconds. Is it just me, or does the so-called dominant diva do more jobs than anyone in the Divas division? I'm already getting plenty of complaints about the filler matches on the show this month. It seems like we get Ryback, the Divas, and or Brodus Clay matches thrown in every month. I can't say I'm surprised. Some of the viewers seem to be, because it's become par for the course, so predictable, which is a shame. I mean, come on. Give somebody else a push. Put Alex Riley on the show. Put Zack Ryder in another match. Come on. Use them. You got the talents? Use them, use them, use them. You're paying them for showing up. Why not pay them to wrestle? All right, the Money in the Bank T-shirt that the Miz was wearing when he came to the ring for his match, it was the same one that they're selling in the arena. And that was they were selling it before Miz announced his entry into the match. And you get the match number 7 of the night. John Cena versus Big Show versus Chris Jericho versus Kane versus Miz in the Raw and the Money in the Bank match. And don't forget, this is the first Money in the Bank that Cena has ever been in. Cena's show got things started off with a spotlight early on as the wrestlers ended up fighting at ringside. Cena clothesline show over the top rope for a big pop. Well, now it's 3 minutes 20 seconds in. Cena performed an attitude adjustment on Big Show through a Spanish announcer's table. All the other wrestlers joined in with throwing a pile of ladders on top of him. So he's got like 10, 15 ladders, big, small, doesn't matter. As a ladder's a ladder. Well, he stayed under there and took a nap for like 10 minutes. As he comes back in the match later on, as you will hear Jericho returned to the ring and made a slow climb for the belt. Miz cut for the climb for the belt. It's the briefcase. Yeah, it's a briefcase, people. Miz cut him off. Jericho put him in a lion tamer. Miz tapped to sell the hold. It's a ladder match. You forgot how to wrestle? Well, 8 minutes in the match, Kane grabbed Miz and Jericho for a double choke slam, but they fought him off and teamed up for a double suplex onto a ladder that was lying already in the ring. Cena slams Jericho and Miz on the opposite ends of the ladder and then performed a groan inducing in my house 10 knuckle shuffle. So, booyah! Show emerged from the pile of ladders at 10, like I said, about 10 minutes into the match. He puts Jericho in between two sides of the ladder and then slammed one end on him until the side of the ladder broke. So then Show and Cena ended up in a ring together while the others sold Show's offense. Show worked over Cena while doing a pro and con Cena chant. Cena, let's go Cena. Cena sucks chant started. Well, at 13 minutes in, Show pulled a giant black and golden ladder. Yeah, this was industrial size, two double ladders, two regular ladders, welded together or whatever how they tied them together and put them as one ladder, so that Big Show could climb a ladder. And they listed him as 432 pounds. Okay. Well, okay, back to the match. All right, Hater Day was saying the ladder was being a tribute to the Conquistadors, black and gold. Show lumbered and eventually said up a ladder in the middle of the ring. Show climbed the ladder and got a hand on the briefcase, but Kane climbed up to the other side of the ladder to stop him. They applied simultaneous chokes. Show punched Kane and knocked him off the ladder. Cena raced up the other side of the ladder and fought with Big Show, who eventually knocked Cena down. Jericho entered the ring and slammed a chair on Show's back a few times to knock him off the ladder at 15 minutes 45 seconds. Jericho and Cena climbed opposite sides of the ladder. Cena got Jericho up with an attitude adjustment position near the top of the ladder, but Jericho slipped out and applied a sleeper hold. Cena fought through the sleeper hold and climbed up the ladder again, but then acted like if he was out. Jericho released the hold to fight off Miz at the top of the ladder. Cena reached up and got a hand on the briefcase while Jericho reapplied the hold. Jericho shoved Cena off the ladder and he fell to the mat, which drew cheers from the adult males. Jericho and Miz both made a play for the briefcase. Jericho wrapped his arms around the briefcase. Miz punches Jericho, who swung from the case. They continued to exchange punches at the top of the ladder. Big Show climbed up the Miz side of the ladder and punched out Jericho. Show then shoves Miz off the ladder. Cena raced up the other side and took shots at Show. Cena slammed the briefcase on Show's head repeatedly, and it appeared the briefcase came off prematurely. Yes, it did, because they lowered the ladder, the rope that it was on, the cable that it was on, and it just dropped into his hands. Wow, so that was another botch spot. Cena celebrated for a second, and then slammed the briefcase onto Show's head, knocking him off the ladder. Cena held up the briefcase, which had a dent in it from hitting Big Show's head, and received a favorable reaction from the crowd. He went to ringside to celebrate with a soldier and other fans. So John Cena won the Money in the Bank match at 20 minutes and 5 seconds in. Knocked me over with a feather. John Cena won a pay-per-view main event match. The question now is whether he will cash in his contract on the 1000th Raw, SummerSlam or later. They kept the match entertaining despite the lack of insane spots for the fans, except for the Money in the Bank matches. Of course, fans had to know going into the match that they weren't going to see that type of action. So it likely lived up to the expectations for most viewers. Overall, it felt like an average show. Wrestlers in the Money in the Bank matches worked really hard, and the championship match was strong. But the filler matches, come on, do better. Again, I'm not surprised that they were there, and I know they want to bring the crowd down a bit between the big matches. But did we really need the two of those matches before Raw and the Money in the Bank? I was curious to see how they would book the WWE Championship match and the Raw Money in the Bank match. It felt like they took the most predictable path. Predictable isn't always a bad thing, and perhaps it will ultimately lead to something better. But for tonight's show, felt like more of the same crap all the time. I'm ready to see them shake things up a little bit, such as SummerSlam with The Rock returning and Brock returning to face some type of a match with Triple H, probably Hell in a Cell match. Well, we'll have to see. Give me some ideas on what you think they should do as I end the video for this month's pay-per-view.